The most terrifying monsters in this classic fairy tale do not have fangs or fur. They wear beautiful dresses and perfectly powdered faces. Looking at this 18th century engraving of a French marriage agreement, we see the reality that birthed the story. Arranged marriages were the standard of the era. Young women were routinely negotiated away by their fathers in exchange for family wealth and elevated social status. Observe the docile posture of the young bride, placed visually on par with the dog at the man's feet. Women were treated as property within a strictly surface-level society that rewarded absolute submission and obedience. This is the world a wealthy merchant and his children inhabit when disaster strikes. The family loses their fortune overnight, forcing them to move to a humble country cottage. The two older sisters are devastated. Their entire identities are wrapped up in their lost luxury, and they spend their days complaining and performing their grief. But the youngest daughter is entirely different. In Madame de Beaumont's original 1756 text, we see exactly why people sympathized with her. Beauty does not waste away mourning her status. She wakes up early, works hard, and spends her free time reading and educating herself. She builds her worth internally. When their father hears one of his merchant ships has returned, the sisters immediately demand expensive clothes and jewels. Beauty, as highlighted in the original publication, asks for something else entirely. "I should like you, father, to bring me a rose." In an aristocratic culture entirely structured around accumulating wealth and trading human beings for material gain, choosing a natural, fleeting flower over diamonds is a quiet rebellion. It is an assertion of her own independent desires. That single rose carries a heavy toll. During his journey, the father inadvertently plucks it from the garden of a cursed beast, who sentences the man to death for the theft unless one of his daughters willingly takes his place. The expected behavior for a young woman in the mid-1700s was to passively accept whatever fate her father decided. Beauty refuses. She overrules her father's protests and actively chooses to surrender herself to the beast. She dictates her own terms. When she arrives at the terrifying estate, she finds a realm designed to coddle her. Yet she ignores the magical banquets and lavish wardrobes. Instead, she gravitates directly to the one thing she actually values: the books. By retreating into the library, she builds what is essentially a castle of the mind. Her physical body is captive to a monster, but through education and logic, her intellect remains completely unconfined. Back in the human world, her sisters seemingly win the 18th century lottery. They marry conventionally handsome, wealthy men, but their husbands turn out to be deeply narcissistic, cruel, and miserable partners. Beauty takes a different approach to her captor. Over weeks of shared dinners, she spends hours in deep conversation with the beast. She applies her intellect and her empathy to look right through his frightening exterior, slowly uncovering a remarkably gentle, lonely soul. A beautiful face can easily hide a tyrant, and a terrifying exterior can conceal an honorable companion. Virtue and intellectual connection outrank superficial beauty every time. The beast eventually grants Beauty a temporary visit to her family, and the contrast between the women is immediate. Beauty arrives mature, educated, and self-possessed. Her sisters are exactly the same as before: bitter, stagnant, and obsessed with status. Seeing Beauty dressed in fine gowns and speaking warmly of her monstrous companion, the sisters are consumed by jealousy. They concoct a lethal plan, feigning tears and affection to keep Beauty past her agreed deadline. Their explicit hope is that the beast will devour their sister in a fit of rage. Through a dream, Beauty realizes her absence is physically killing the beast. She immediately sees through her sister's toxic performance, leaves them behind, and rushes back to the castle to save him. Finding him near death in the garden, she makes one final independent choice. She declares her love for his virtuous character and agrees to marry him. That free, uncoerced choice breaks the curse, allowing his physical form to finally align with his noble interior. A magical fairy arrives to deliver the final judgments. Because beauty prioritized her mind and her compassion over wealth and appearances, she is rewarded with an active, joyous future alongside a partner she actually chose. The original text details a horrifying yet perfectly fitting penalty for her siblings. The fairy condemns them to become two statues, frozen at the gates of beauty's new palace. They lived their entire lives obsessed with shallow, static appearances, so they are frozen as decorative objects forever. Madame de Beaumont's tale serves as a blueprint for personal autonomy. Physical beauty always fades, but an educated mind and a compassionate heart yield a power that endures.